There we go. Excellent. So everyone, my name is Jessica Chase. I don't have my camera on currently as my wireless internet at the museum can be a little bit sketchy at times. So I'm just going to keep Janice's presentation on the screen and just use my voice for the time being. But I want to welcome everyone here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for the launch of 2 new educational resources focusing on what we can all learn from Indigenous technologies. These resources were created by Kahehtoktha Janice Brant, who's with us. You can see her video probably in the corner. And she created these in collaboration with us at the county museums. As I said, my name is Jessica Chase, and I'm a curator with the county museums. And I'm so thrilled to be able to help launch the video and accompanying booklet that were created by Janice, and she and I worked on them together. So very happy to be here with you all today to celebrate them. And I also wanted to let you know that if you haven't had a chance to actually look at these resources yet, so both the video showing Janice demonstrating on the grinding stones that live here at Macaulay Heritage Park, as well as the educational booklet that accompanies that video and goes into more depth about Indigenous technologies and ways of knowing and how we can learn more from them. I have put links to both in the chat. So I do encourage you to take a look at those if you haven't already. Now, before we go any further this evening, our museum team and me on their behalf, we want to acknowledge that our museums are on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, the St. Lawrence Iroquoians, and the Mississauga Anishinaabeg. We are incredibly grateful to the generations of people who have taken care of this land and could not be more thankful that we have the opportunity to live and to work here and to meet here, albeit virtually tonight, with all of you to have these important and fulfilling conversations. Kahehtoktha Janice Brant sits with the Bear Clan in the Mohawk Nation and is from Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory. She was raised in a farming family and is a traditional seed keeper and gardener. She loves storytelling, art, history, and cooking. Janice is an established professional artist and teacher, and she has published both academic and creative writings. Janice has a long relationship with the county museums, and this stems back to visits to Macaulay Heritage Park as a child, and later even an internship at Ameliasburg Heritage Village. She has always been an advocate for ensuring that space is given and respect shown for the teaching of Indigenous technologies and ways of knowing. And we are incredibly grateful that she is a friend of the museums and that she so often shares her expertise and passion with us. So thank you, Janice. We're very excited to have you here tonight. Before I turn it over to Janice, I would also like to introduce Sakwayeda Widrick. Maybe Sakwayeda can give us a little wave. And Sakwayeda is from the Adirondack Mountains of Upper New York State and sits with the Wolf Clan in the Mohawk Nation. Sakwayeda follows the traditional Gangigihaga lifestyle. He's an artist, craft worker, ritualist, singer, dancer, flautist, educator, healer, gardener, and a writer. He kind of does it all. His work is focused on keeping alive the rich cultural heritage of the Aboriginal people of Native North America, Turtle Island, and especially the culture and heritage of the Haudenosaunee Longhouse people. Sakwayeda generously gave us permission to use his flute music in the video of Janice using the grinding stones. So if you've listened or watched the video already, you've heard him play before. And he is going to perform for us all today. After Sakwayeda's performance, Janice will present. Not sure how long we'll be here this evening, but don't worry, it won't be too long. But that being said, once Janice starts talking, you'll want her to keep going. And I encourage you all to write any questions or comments in the chat so that we can discuss them after the presentation. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Sakwayeda, who can start us off with a song.
I welcome you all here on behalf of my sister, Janice Brant. I am very pleased that I was asked to play to help her out. And I've always believed that when we play flutes or we're asked to help, that we do so with the same strength that the eagle uses to seek the deepest blue of the sky. In our way, we honor all of creation and everything people does. So I'm going to try to play one of the songs that I play, and I find at times when I play that the flute, the spirit of the flute decides I should play something else, and that's what comes that's what comes out instead. So I will try to make this song appropriate for you all. And with that, I thank you all for attending at this time. Now we'll go. Now we'll go.
Yamagoa Sagoyeta. That was a beautiful song. I felt like I could just close my eyes and go somewhere special. Yama.
No, no.
Jessica, would you like me to go ahead?
You go right ahead, Janice. Just let me know when I should change the slide.
Okay. So I want to start by welcoming everyone here tonight as well, and sharing my greetings and Thanksgiving for all of you and for this event and for all of the people that have contributed in some way or another to this, to reaching this point tonight. So I very much appreciate everyone who came on tonight. I thank you. And I want to especially thank Sagoyeta for joining us and making time for this. We were so grateful to have his music for the film. And I want to thank Jessica Chase so much for all the work that we've done together over the last couple of years around the grinding stones in particular, and just how wonderful that has been to do that. So I guess what I would like to do and how I'd like to start is by inviting everyone that's joined us, if you know how to use your chat and if you're comfortable, to maybe put in the chat where you're joining us from tonight. And you can also, I'd also like to invite you to share, if you'd like, what brings you to this event tonight, why you decided to come on, or what sparked your interest. And then last, I'd like you to, if you feel comfortable again, to put some things in the chat that you recognize as Indigenous technologies. That can be inventions, different contributions that are that you recognize as coming from Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island and that are part of our current society and way of living in this country. So just a few things for you. I always, as an educator, I'm retired now, but I learn I learn a lot through the process of teaching and sharing. And so I feel like I want to continue those practices by inviting people to engage and participate and to even share. And then at the end, we're going to have a bit of discussion and maybe some questions and that people might have for me or even for Sagoyeta. I hope that's okay. And then I think we're going to close off with a little bit more of the flute as long as probably we're not keeping Sagoyeta too long. So that's kind of my plan as we embark on this journey together. And certainly if you've already previewed the video, the film, you may already have heard a little bit of how I learn from other people through discussion and through my own sharing of the things that I know. So we can go to the next slide, Jess. I guess one more thing, I would really like to thank my family, and my husband, because they're always very supportive of me on my journey. And yeah, I wouldn't be here probably without them. So I want to say thank you to them as well. So this photo I love. The reason I put this, my friend Jacinta invited me along to McCully House. She was doing a little presentation on her felted wool needle felted sculptures. And one of them is one of my ancestors, Molly Brant, and that's how we came to know each other and to be friends. And when I joined her that day at the museum, I saw the grinding stones, and I was so glad to be there on many levels, but that was my first time to see those stones. And so that's why I included this picture, because it reminds me of that day and just, how grateful I was to be there and to celebrate my ancestor Molly Brant, but then coincidentally to come across this beautiful mortar and pestle. So thank you for that. Just gave a little bit of my background in terms of my relationship with the county museums. And it started when I was a child because, as a family, farming family, we didn't travel very far or stay away overnight very often. But one thing my parents did do is that they often took us around to small museums and different things that were local. So that was sometimes, a Saturday or a Sunday. And they just, they liked learning as well. And they were always encouraging us to learn and to understand, our culture. And so I remember as a girl visiting the McCully house, the McCully church, and it was full of cases that you could see into, and it had like probably hundreds, if not thousands, of Indigenous artifacts. And I remember walking along with my dad and him pointing out, "Oh, I recognize that. That's a bone awl." Or I recognize that was used to drill into stone or to drill into a bead and to make another tool or a weight for a fishing line, different things. And so I became really fascinated with artifacts that have been found in Prince Edward County, because that is, we're all in the same area. And even here in Tyendinaga, once in a while, artifacts are found. But we had a lot of villages throughout Prince Edward County. And one of the things I do know is that the majority of the artifacts found are Iroquoian. So that just indicates, how long we've been there or been in the area. So, yeah, so my relationship was, I guess, reignited when I saw the stones. And we can go to the next slide, Jess. Because when I saw the stones, one thing, in my experience, my previous experience with Native artifacts is that myself, I had not come across a mortar and pestle sort of that seemed like a set. And these two stones fit like a lock and key. And so there was no doubt in my mind once I was able to touch them, that they were indeed, had been together for quite some time. Sometimes when you're working with artifacts, you might find the base, or you might find the pestle, but very seldom two together that match. So this was really exciting for me, just as an educator, as someone that's interested in history and culture and all the different aspects of our foodways. And so I was really drawn to make inquiries about the stones. And I just so fondly remember approaching Jen Lyons, who at the time was the curator. And I felt a little bit shy and thinking, I wonder, because I just, I think, I think I always think, everybody knows stuff and I don't. But I was nervous. And then when I mentioned it, I thought, oh, wow, like, maybe they don't know about this stone. And then I realized that maybe I could share, and we started to build a relationship. And so I was invited. So all of this was happening in 2018. So I can't remember. I see Jacinta's on here. I can't remember exactly the month that we were there at the museum for your workshop. But it was roughly early September or September when I had my first real in-depth experience with these two stone grinders. So I had set it up with Jen Lyons and Jessica Chase, and Ken came with me, and we brought some corn and we brought some sacred medicines. And the first thing that we did was we cleaned the stones really, really well. We smudged them with medicines, and we wanted to communicate to the stones our intention to learn and to acknowledge all the many hands that had probably touched these stones at one time or another, and the generations that they have passed through, because they're very old. We don't know exactly how old they are, but I have some speculations that I can share later if you're interested in that. But it was really important to honor these stones, not just as an object, but that to recognize that they're our grandmothers and they're alive and they have a spirit, and oh, the stories they can tell. So we wanted to make sure that that was our first step, is to let them know what we're doing and why, but also that very much the day I saw them, that I felt there was an immediate communication, that they were happy to see me, that they wanted me to come and visit them, and that they wanted me to grind some corn and to tell stories about them and to listen to them. And so that's how it sort of began. And we cleaned the stones really well, spiritually and energetically. And then I polished them down with a piece of leather and just dusted them, so to speak, clean them in that way as well, physically, like rubbing them. But also something that I know from my previous experience with museums is we have to be careful because we don't know, for example, what might have been used on the stones or how they were treated over time. But as many artifacts do, they have a serial number etched into them and then covered with some kind of material to protect that number from being erased. And that just helps museums to catalog their artifacts and to keep track of their history and what's happening. And so we did learn a little bit of the history. It was just a couple sentences, I think, Jessica, that were written about this particular artifact that was received into the museum collection in the 70s. by a local family. My speculation is that these stones have never left the area based on the sheer weight of them. We have not weighed them, and we have had lots of guesses on the weight. But and I think I talk a little bit about that in the video, because it's not something that you would just run away with because of the weight of it. So it was probably put in a special place if it had to be left behind, where either other people could see it and use it, or something like that. So just to give yeah, so that was sort of some of the process that we went through as we got started. Also, just around that serial number, this one had the pestle didn't have a serial number that I could find, but the base did. And as we worked, you can sort of see it in this one photo that there's a little etching at the front where the crack is. Of the serial number, but as we worked with the grinding stones, it started coming off. It started shedding the cover, and also some of the numbers started to disappear a little bit. But we also recognized that because we were using it and grinding with it, that we probably shouldn't eat or use that flour, unfortunately, because we don't know what was protecting that serial number. And when we were grinding, it was probably going into whatever we were doing. So I know sometimes people ask me, did you cook something or make something after you ground all those flours and different things? But we didn't, at least at this particular time. So a lot of imagining, a lot of speculating, a lot of asking questions, a lot of having dialogue. With groups. I think we did 2 visits where the county museums brought the stones to Tyendinaga for our own people to see and touch and experience, which was amazing. So empowering and powerful. Anytime our people have the opportunity to connect deeply with our culture, and especially our foods and these ancient grandmothers. And so there's sort of like so we did approximately, I think, five workshops overall in 2000 from 2018 to when COVID started. So that really that was sort of the end of the live experiences with the stone. We can go to the next slide, Jess, please. So I'm not sure where the idea came or how it came about, but Jess invited me to do a Facebook Live video sharing about the stones. And I accepted, even though being in front of the camera is not necessarily something I look forward to. But yeah, I did feel like I wanted to share more about these stones. And I feel like the video, so on the same day we did the Facebook Live, we also had a videographer, Paul. I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry, but he was really wonderful. And then he edited the footage into a more polished video, which is really great. And you have the link to that. Just put them in the just put them in the chat if you haven't seen them already. And so I guess, and I don't know again how it came up, but from that experience, we started talking about a booklet or some kind of a little publication that would go with the video, or that they could be used together or apart. It wouldn't matter, but yet it would share some interesting information, asking questions about Indigenous technologies. And just some of my own background as an educator. I had done similar types of, I guess I felt like in some ways the book was already written, because I had approached these things in much the same way and giving some workshops to school boards and things over the years, where I would bring different artifacts and I would put them out on tables and invite teachers to look at them, and we would have some discussions about, well, how was it made and what do you think it's for, and those kinds of things. And it would always be really interesting and very exciting, but at the same time, very obvious that not a lot of thought had been given to these things, and not a lot of considerations in terms of the contributions and technologies that Indigenous people have contributed to our society in the way that we live today. Pardon me for just 1 second. So getting so I guess I had a few factors that were motivating me you know, on this particular project, and to work on these things, and to, I guess, sort of study it and experience it, and yeah, and then to, you know, get to share with other people and learn from other people and their ideas and insights, and to, you know, be able to create the you know, the film and also the booklet. I never realized or thought at any point that it would go that far, but it's, you know, I'm pretty happy about it. I'm pretty excited because these are free resources for educators, so I hope they'll use them, and I hope that they will, you know, value them, and that it will help to inspire more learning and more, you know, thought and dialogue about Indigenous contributions, and also to different technologies. So I'm excited to get to look in the chat and see what some of the things are that you put there. So in my own personal life, as someone that grew up on a farm and has worked on seed keeping and has done those different activities, part of doing that also is enjoying the foods and eating them. And one of the challenges that I would face all the time was, how do I process this corn? Like, it almost seems impossible, you know. And my own grandma, she used to use like this really big, I don't know where she got it, but it was like a really heavy duty like food processor for milling the corn. And that was after it was lied, and she would even soak it and before she could use it in the mill, because corn is has a very hard exterior. And I remember going back a few years, you know, some people were wanting to make corn mush, and they were using a blender, and it was very difficult, and it would wear the machine out because corn is not easy to process in that way. And so even myself in my own home, in my own kitchen, I was always feeling like, you know, what can I do to make this job easier, because it was a lot of work. And so, you know, more and more I paid attention to like our older people and what they did and how they used the corn pounders and things like that. And so I was sort of on this path, like learning. And then when I saw the grinding stones, and also, like I said, having some previous experience with artifacts, I knew exactly what I was looking at, and I was amazed, and I couldn't wait. I was so honored that the county museums trusted me and gave me the opportunity to actually physically work with the stones hands-on. You could see in the other photo that there is a crack. And so that means that, you know, at any point they could give way. So it felt like, well, why not? Let's try some things and let's learn all that we can just in case. And so it was pretty exciting to bring seeds from our own farm and to try them out. You see some of them here in this photo, to try them on the stone and to see how well the stone worked, and to realize that this technology is still used today. I mean, many of us have mortar and pestles in our kitchens, but yet they're often tiny ones. You know, nothing as big as this set. But pretty exciting to, you know, get to know them more intimately. We can change slides, Jess. And please, at any time, if you have questions or things you think of, and if you don't want to wait till the end, put them in the chat, and that way we can visit about them. So the next slide is just a couple of shots of the day we did the live Facebook, and the videographer was there doing still shots and also recording. It was basically sort of like, I really feel like a culminating activity where we were bringing together all the collection of knowledge and information from this experience over the last couple of years of studying these stones and learning about them. And so that's sort of, you know, how I look at the video, because I did try to share a lot on all levels about our learning and the different reflection that we had over that time about these particular stones. And so there's something I want to say about that, like, you know, that it's different than when I was a child, because when I was a child, I was looking through glass at these artifacts that were once, you know, belonged and used by my own ancestors. And so what a great thing to experience, you know, that this change where, you know, we don't have to be a culture under glass, because we are alive and we're a living culture. And so I feel like this is what I really want to celebrate about these stones is, and our experience with them is that, you know, just like we remain here and we're still alive, our culture is still alive, and we do have a connection to these things. And so it's nice to sort of move beyond that stage of a culture under glass that can only be looked at, you know, through the glass, and we can't touch it, you know. And so having the county museums, you know, open up this opportunity with new eyes in a new way, you know, really, I think gave me a lot, and maybe has given a lot of people a lot. I know our community has really enjoyed the times that the stones were brought here, when they would lay their hands on this. That's something you don't get to see or didn't get to see through this process, but you know, just to see those people lay their hands on the stone and to feel them and to have that deep connection. And even some children, we had some younger groups of students, and also one mother brought her, I think he was only maybe 4 or 5 years old, and we had to go get him a stool so that he could grind some corn on the mortar. And it's quite remarkable for the weight of these stones that even a 4-year-old could maneuver them and use them effectively, which was really, really awesome. And I do have to say that inside the McCully Church, these stones, I mean, I can only imagine if they were outside and you were waking up and you could hear your mother or grandmother starting to use the mortar, because the sound is just like music. And even in the church with its high ceilings and everything, it sounded like pretty incredible. So yeah, it was a really good experience. And I really, yeah, I found it was, yeah, we just learned so much, and it gave me a chance to try some different activities with our foods. We ground corn and rice and even cracked some walnuts. And I hadn't thought of it before, but I'm thinking of it now, Jess, that we can make a note of it, that maybe another time when I come, I'd like to put some sunflower seeds on there. Because I keep thinking of ways and different foods and how it might have been used, even still after this much time that we've spent with the stones. So I still have a bit of excitement and fascination there. So I guess the last slide there.
Janice,
I think it's the last slide. Yes.
may I ask what types of corn you have here?
Sure. So in these images, you can see quite a bit of the white corn. That is the Mohawk white flour, and that corn So through my oral tradition, we can trace it back to just sort of like the early 1900s, but it goes back much further than that in my family. So it's something I'm really honored and proud that my father and through his family were able to continue those seeds, and now I have them and I grow them and I share them, and we eat them, and I'm so glad that we have them. Just, I know it's a little complicated, but do you mind? Oh, thank you. This just helps me remember all the different things we had there. There's a small corn that you can see, red. It's strawberry popcorn, or Kahehtoktha Janice Brant. It's the strawberry popping corn. And so you do find this corn from time to time at markets and different places, even in Prince Edward County, but it's often sold under the guise of being a decorative corn or an ornamental corn. But most corn is eaten by Indigenous peoples. They're not really ornamental. It's just that I think people don't really know how to process them. And so therefore, they don't think they're edible, but they all are. And so there's also on this table some black sweet, which is actually, when you're eating it as sweet corn, is white and beautiful and milky. But as it moves to its most mature phase, it turns black. And then therefore you get this black corn seed, which is really beautiful. And so why we would grind that is because, well, the Mohawk flour is pretty obvious. So it's flour corn, but the black sweet would make a black sweet cornmeal. And the red popcorn would also make, you can pop it, but you can also grind it like flour. And then some of the other things that we have there, we have a pod corn, which is a corn that has a husk over each kernel, as well as the entire cob. There is a blue flint and a blue flint and also a blue flour corn. They look very similar, but the seed coat is just a little bit different between the two corns. And there's also a Cayuga flint. And then we have, you can't see them, they're not as visible, but they're in a bowl near the front of the stone, is Hopi black beans, because I love bean flour. So I wanted to give it a test on the stones, and it worked excellent. In fact, anything that we put in the mortar was pulverized very well and very quickly. The amount of time saved by this piece of equipment was absolutely amazing. It works so well, and anything we put in it, walnuts, different kinds of corn, wild rice, beans, it didn't matter. It worked excellent for everything. So that was pretty fun and pretty exciting. And like I said, just the weight, you didn't even have to grind a lot. The weight of the stone helped to pulverize the corn into flour fairly quickly. So yeah, so that's some of what's there that you see. Thanks for asking that, Jacinta. And we can go, yeah. So the last slide. So when we embarked on this, I guess, kind of journey, we were also at the same time in our community working on establishing the Gundege Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center. And this was for a couple of purposes. It was for protecting some of our own seeds in the community that maybe weren't getting passed on to younger people. Maybe they didn't have the interest or various reasons, but also to welcome home a seed collection from the Kingston area that was at the Sisters of Providence. When they closed their heirloom seed sanctuary, we became a candidate, our community, to receive those seeds. And many of those seeds are Indigenous. About 60%, or could even be 70% of that collection. We still are doing documentation and research that many of those seeds are in fact Indigenous, and some of them are even seeds we really know very well. And so we're so glad to be able to, I was really thankful for the county museums, not just to let me use the stones, but we also got to help use the stones as an introduction to the Gundagai Seed Sanctuary and to help ask for donations and support for its founding. And now here we are, we're getting ready in a few weeks to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of the seed rematriation. And yeah, so I'm so very thankful that we could sort of do so many things with these grinding stones. It helped the seed sanctuary, it helped create awareness about Indigenous foods, Indigenous food ways, how to process food, different kinds of food, how to use grinding stones and how to think about Indigenous technologies. And yeah, so I'm just so grateful, to reflect back on all of this and even just to recognize the relevance of all of this information and knowledge and skills, even still today. These things are not locked in the past. They're not part of the past. They are part of the present, and they are part of, the future. And I'm excited to be a helper in passing on this knowledge to other people and future generations. So with that, we can look at the very last slide, which is really just me saying thank you. And I have listed some biographical information about myself and some of my background in academics and scholarly work, just so that, you know a little bit more about who I am and where I'm speaking from. And this just sort of adds to what Jess, I guess, had already said so generously. And so with that, I wonder if we can close the slide presentation and just have a chat and some discussion. And I hope that Jess can help facilitate that. I'm not sure what's going to happen, how I'll see the chat and everyone at the same time, but I'll try. Oh, yes. Okay.
Hi, Janice.
Hi,
Also,
Jess.
generous in your bio, let's be honest. You're pretty incredible. All right, so let's go back up to the top of the chat maybe. Did you want to just scroll down yourself, Janice, or do you want me to maybe shout out what folks have been saying?
Yeah, shout it out, Jess. I think that's a good way.
So we have people coming in, of course, from Prince Edward County, Napanee, Trenton, Peterborough, Oneida of the Thames Indian Reserve. I think that's Sakoyeda. Hello. Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory, Kingston, Toronto, although family is from Akwesasne, Tweed, more Prince Edward County, of course. Hi, Susan. Great to see you again here. And Christine, lots of people I know already, which is fantastic. Also, Jezina, so great to see you again after having you here at the museums. I believe that was February of 2018 you were here.
Okay.
And then Jennifer Lyons, our former curator from Sophiasburg PEC. Now, where is Deshkin Zibi? I see Jillian. Jillian, I'm curious about where you live. Hi, Jillian. I was like, you can unmute yourself and talk if you want. You don't have to. No one has to talk if they don't want. But I'm just because I do not know where that is. So I always love to.
It's the name of the Thames here in London.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Original name of the Thames.
See, I'm learning something new. That's cool. And just in terms of questions, I see Mary Lynn asking if the stone would have been, sort of round. I'm guessing maybe, I don't know if you mean like round as in the edge of the stone or if it would have had that indentation on it, Mary Lynn. I'm not sure. She just asked, would the stone have been round or is it from using it? But maybe she could specify what she meant. Is she here? Mary Lynn, I see she's muted. That's okay. What do you think, Janice? Oh, no. I'm not sure
I can answer that, Jess.
Go
So-
ahead, Jen.
Sorry, I mean the one that is the round one on top. Would it have been round? Sorry, I didn't make that very clear.
Hi, Mary Lynn.
Hi, Janice. How are you?
Good. Nice that you're on here.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
I want to help with the seed sanctuary.
Awesome. So around the stone, so I've thought about this a lot off and on, and Ken and I too, my husband, he's so great to talk with. He has a lot of Indigenous knowledge and experience on the land. And so after spending so much time with these grinding stones, we started watching out for stones that would be good grinding stones. So it makes sense that people would have looked for, maybe they started, the stone just had a small indentation, but over time as they ground away, the pot in the center got deeper and wider and such. And that's sort of what I've done here at home, is I found a stone that had a natural indentation. And then I found another stone to use as the pestle. And so over time, I hope that it will become a better and better tool. But through talking with my husband, he also said, well, they may have also used sand and rubbed it together to help create that indentation more and more. So there is ways that different technologies are created, and for certain, they probably, got a lot of the times our teachings tell us that we learn from watching animals, we learn from watching nature, we learn from observing. And so because, we would have said, oh, well, it sort of makes sense to sort of shape, look for ones that are bowl-like or, yeah, but there's all kinds of them in Prince Edward County. And I know of a few really huge ones that are still where they are because they cannot be moved easily. And they're ones that you could stand at instead of, like, say, sitting on the floor. Or so they're really amazing. There's a lot of them in this area. We may once in a while come across them and not even know what we're looking at, because they would have been used a lot, like for cracking nuts, for probably getting the hulls off of sunflowers, which I was thinking recently, in addition to like cracking corn and grinding corn and making flour. And one of the other things we did, it wasn't just that we cracked like walnuts open on it. You can also use it to grind the flesh of the nut into a meal, into like a paste. So, and then to clean the stones, you just add more corn and you do it again. And it's amazing. Actually, like, there was just so much to learn. But thanks so much for your question, Mary Lynn, because yes, I believe that it's sort of two ways, partly they were looking for ones that would make good grinding stones. And then also, if they needed to, they helped shape it using other methods like water and sand, for example, and grinding it. The two stones, the top stone is, and excuse me if I get the terms wrong. I'm not an expert on geology, but it's sort of like a gneiss stone or a gneiss stone, it's called. It's very solid. It's dark in color. And the base part of it is granite, which means that when you grind one against the other, one will release particles because they're two different kinds of stone. And both stones are local to the region and are found easily in the area. So so it's really amazing. And then I also, from thinking about food and nutrition, I thought, well, did grinding our meals in this way contribute to our mineral intake by grinding against the stone? And so there's just so many, like, even though I feel like I've learned so much, I still have questions. I still want to know more. And I'm thankful for questions because they help me think more in depth on these things. So now I want to acknowledge my stepdaughter. Thank you for coming on. she has a brand new baby. So I know that's not easy just to come on a Zoom. Yeah.
I think there is one other question that I can find. I was going to say if I missed anybody's questions, there are lots of nice comments though, Janice, that you might want to scroll through as well. But Mary was asking, are these stones still used? Now, maybe she means in terms of like generally people using grinding stones rather than mechanical grinders. And she spoke about working in Malawi for 7 years with people still very much using grinding stones in order to grind corn. And I know that you yourself, Janice, have mentioned the fact that these stones work better than any mechanical grinder you've ever encountered. So I'm wondering if people aren't using stones like this, if they may want to return, you know, if we should all be adopting this type of technology to grind things.
Absolutely. I think this is great technology still. I mean, like I said, most modern kitchens still have a mortar and pestle of some kind. I have one that's made of marble, and then I have one that's made of wood, but I didn't have a stone one, and the stone works so well and really reduces the amount of labor. And for how heavy those stones are, it's remarkable how light they are at the fingers. They move really easily.
They're incredibly easy to manipulate, and I'm someone who's not at all handy. Like Janice is an amazing cook and just so good with food in all of its forms, and I am not whatsoever. So if I can move these stones easily, that's saying something. I'm like, I think I could grind something into flour, which is amazing. Now, if I don't know if I hope I haven't missed anybody's questions, because I know, Janice, you and I sort of worked on some questions that we could ask the audience that they might want to participate in. Should we move on to those now?
Sure, that sounds good. And I just want to acknowledge my granddaughter Lachlan is on too. She's I think around 13. So hello. Glad you came on. I think like when I think of Mexico, they use stone all the time. They use stone grinders to process corn still, right? And in many cultures all around the world had different technologies for grinding grains and such. And so, yeah, I feel like it's you know, it's just something that we, I guess, have to look at and think about in a different way. So. That's my dog Maggie.
Come
on.
Now, I have a question for all of you, because I hope everyone here did have an opportunity to watch the video and take a look at the booklet before coming on. Not that it was by any means necessary, but obviously Janice and I think they're pretty great, and I hope you like them too. But I was curious if anyone had anything that they wanted to tell us about, you know, what they're going to take away from these resources, if there was anything in particular that that stood out, and maybe, you know, how you might use them to educate going forward, you know, whether if you're an educator or if you have children or grandchildren, how these resources might be useful for you in some way. And feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Jess. Hi, Janice. You know, as you've been speaking, Janice, I was thinking about watching, we found a really great shagbark hickory in the fall. And my daughter and some of her friends, and the first thing that they're 13 too. They were 12 at the time, most of them were 13. And the first thing they did was go and find rocks. And as you've been talking, I've been thinking about that sort of elemental tool that, you know, that spans every continent, spans every culture, that, you know, our first tool as children. And I don't think there's a culture probably anywhere that didn't start with using what's around them, and it just seems so perfect. And next time when we go, because we're going to go back to that tree next fall, obviously, I think maybe we'll think about what we look for in the rocks a little bit more now that I've been listening to you. Such a beautiful story. Thanks.
Oh, I see Susan's got a hand up.
Hi, thank you so much, Janice. Wonderful to see you. I'm sorry I didn't know about the video and the is it a book or booklet that you've produced?
Yeah, it's a tiny little booklet. Yeah, there's Janice is holding it up.
Okay.
So
yeah,
there's
so
a chat right at the very top, so you can take a look.
okay. So are those available at the museum? Can we look at them there, or
They are.
can
Yeah. So we have physical copies of the booklets at the museum. So if you prefer like a handheld physical copy, you're welcome to drop in when we're open and pick one up. And then yes, we have it hosted on our website as a PDF as well. So it's a free resource that people can access online. And then the video is on our YouTube channel. And this video will be up there too.
Okay, fantastic. I have, are you open now for visitors?
We are. We're open
Yeah.
at Poly Heritage Park from Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 4.
Okay, so I have my granddaughter visiting me starting next week. She is in a Cree community in northern Quebec. So the teacher she still has to do school, but I told her, I'm a teacher. We're going to do a lot of project work. So I'm thinking I'll bring her over so that is the stone there? Can it be seen? And
yep. The stone is there, and she's welcome. Yes, she can touch it. She can interact with the stone, and the video is also playing as well, so she can actually see Janice using it too.
okay,
in addition to having the booklet, yeah.
Okay, that would be fantastic. And the other thing that came to mind, Janice, while you were talking, you talked about your mom, and you talked about how she processed the corn, and you mentioned lying. And I'm just wondering, is that still a method that you use? And tell me what you make with the lied corn.
So there's a bit of a backstory to washing corn. That's what we call it in our own language. But I grew up, people called it lied corn. So basically lied corn is corn that is nixtamalized, and that's the more scientific term used for that. And so it's basically washing the corn in some kind of a chemical solution to basically loosen the seed coat. And it softens the corn and makes it also easier for our bodies to receive the nutrients from it. If you try to eat a lot of corn, say like flour corn that isn't washed or lied, you can actually run into problems. And that happened historically when they took corn from North America and took it to Europe. They weren't really using it right. And so there's a disease called pellagra, and pellagra is when you eat too much corn that's not processed right. And it actually can fill your belly, but result in malnutrition. Because with that tough seed coat, it's really hard for your body to get all of what it should get. And then when you wash corn, it actually changes the compounds of the corn, and corn becomes high in protein and calcium. So it's very healthy. It's very healthy and nutritious and good for us to eat corn in that form. And so here where I live, they sometimes use, it used to be called Gillette's lye, used to be able to buy it at the grocery store. And it's today, I think, called plumber's lye, which is used for cleaning the pipes of your, which doesn't sound very appetizing, I know, right? But it's the chemical process, like I said, to soften the corn and release the seed coat. But here where we are, we use wood ashes or hardwood ashes mostly to do that. And so we'd wash all our corn in that and cook it. And then it has to be rinsed until it comes clear, because you don't want any of that chemical. Even if it's wood ash, you don't want that on your food. So you have to wash it a lot to get it clean. And some people say, oh, you have to wash it this many times or that many times. But essentially, like what my grandmother said is, you wash it as many times as it takes until the water runs clear. Is basically the rule. And the corn also sort of like increases in size when you put it through that process. And so for like using it on the corn mortar, you can, oh, I just called it a corn mortar, but yeah, that's essentially what it is to me in a way. You can grind it and mill it when it's wet.
Oh,
And it makes like a soft bread, and you can form it into a soft bread and add beans or berries or anything that you want to eat with it. Some people put like little pieces of meat. The meat pieces were really tiny. Anytime I saw it with meat in it, because meat was like a luxury. And so it was used very sparingly. And then you can also, after the corn is washed, and this is the kind of corn I just used tonight, making our supper, is corn that is washed and then laid out on screens and dried. And then you put it on the mortar, and then you make flour out of it. And from that flour, you can make tortillas, you can make corn cereal, you can do lots of really cool stuff. And so I hope that answers a little bit of that question. It's still a process we do regularly. If you come to our community and you see live corn or corn for sale in a freezer, that corn has been nixtamalized, and so it's ready to use in whatever way you want to use it. And like I said, it has a different calcium and protein content once it's washed. So it's really healthy and very nutritious, probably greatly underutilized, except for in Mexico, where they still like eat tons of tortillas every day. So yeah.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much for explaining all that.
You're welcome.
Oh, I see Diane up there in the corner has a question. Diane, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this session. I just wondered if there was a connection of using the feather.
So yes, there is. So one of the things that we found as we worked with the stones, so we brought a feather with us because we were smudging and we were cleaning the stone spiritually, and we used it for that purpose originally. But then as we started working with the corn, I thought, okay, now how are we going to get the corn off the mortar without wasting it or spilling it? But what we found was there was an actual ledge, like where you could sit the bowl or container under the edge of the stone, fit perfectly. And then we just used the feather to sweep the corn into the bowl. It was amazing. And so, yeah, nothing too fancy, but yet that feather, served a few different purposes. So that was pretty cool. And thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for asking me.
And
Thank you.
something about the feather and the stone that I mean, just you mentioning the sweeping motion, Janice, I think in the video as well, you mention it, that there's almost like this natural lip at the side of the stone where the crack is, that you could put a dish to collect the cornmeal once you've ground down your corn. And obviously the feather makes it so much easier to sweep into a dish. But like the fact that lip, that natural lip exists, like this tool is just so perfectly, designed and shaped. Like, I mean, it's a combination of both. But yeah, I just found that really interesting when you started working with the stone, and just like pointing out things that were so incredible about it that we might not even notice when you first look at it.
Definitely. I think by using it, we were learning about all these different things, right? That they had thought of everything. they had thought of even how to empty it and how to, you know, use it without wasting it. And now I can't quite tell whether the lip was formed, you know, using another tool and created special in the design, or if it just happened to be the stone that they chose had that little ledge, which also made it perfect for that experience and for doing that work. It seemed like no matter what question we came up against, the stone would answer it, and it would always like just amaze me, because it was like, wow, they thought of everything. There's nothing that we can add to this tool. It's perfect in its design, and it's made to be used easily and conveniently, and yeah, so pretty cool.
I had one more question for the group, which was, what might you all like to see next if you wanted to see a follow-up to this? Because it's something that obviously, you know, we did our partnership and relationship with Janice at the museums will continue, hopefully for perpetuity, in perpetuity. But in terms of this particular project, you know, producing the booklet, we were lucky enough to have some funding in 2021 to do that, which we don't have this year. I mean, but I'm going to see what I'll see what I can find. There is funding out there. So I'm curious if there are other things that you might like to see. I know Janice has lots of ideas about what might come next, but if any of you have any specific ideas, please, you know, don't hold your peace, you know, speak now.
Jessica, one thing that it's Mary Lynn, I thought was, could we grind some corn and make bread?
Yeah. We'll up the ante and actually make some food. And I mean, it's interesting, you know, Janice mentioned the fact that she has yet to cook with any of the flour created on the stone because of its you know, potential for what's happened to it over the years. But who knows, maybe we just have to, I'm willing to take that risk, Janice. I'm willing to test that bread. Whatever you make, I will test. I'm willing to do that. I will be the test subject.
I would test.
So, Susan's also agreeing. So maybe that will be, you know, maybe we could do a session where we do some taste testing. That could be really interesting. Thank you, Mary Lynn, for that suggestion.
Yes, I'm willing to do that as long as we can grind that number off of there.
Yeah.
Only because it's the coating over top of the etched in number that worries me.
Yeah.
I don't know what they've used for that or how they used it. I have some ideas about how they do that, but I'm not 100% sure.
These days we use sort of like an acryloid. It's almost like a nail polish, like a clear nail polish. So, but I'm like, in that tiny amount, you know, it's like almost 50-year-old nail polish. My stomach, I've eaten worse. I bet I could handle it. But I will say, Melissa just said, oh, different stories about strains of corn, and in particular, their origin stories. There are so many different varieties. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other last minute additions, and also just general feedback? I mean, we are just really curious about if there is any feedback. You know, obviously we love positive feedback, but also any constructive feedback as well about if we were to do, you know, another booklet or approach another session, if there's anything constructive that we should keep in mind. I think, you know, Janice would agree with me that we're tough, we can take it. So
maybe I'd just like to add, Jess, that if people haven't seen the booklet yet, it's strongly based in a lot of my experience. And really, even when I was doing my master's studies, I really became aware of how important it is to ask questions of things and to have that kind of frame of mind in terms of inquiry. And so a lot, even to say, even the title of the book, What Can We Learn from Indigenous Technologies, is sort of setting an example of ways to ask questions so that we can discover more and more and more all the time. But I see too, someone had put in the comment, maybe more about the seeds and the seed collection, as well as the different kinds of corn. And I also like, the idea of grinding corn on the mortar and use it for cooking and actually make something out of it. I do like that idea, and yeah, and now that the stone has been used a few times and we've ground away on it, I think it's definitely safer and safer because we've, removed sort of anything that might have been on the top layer. And yeah, I think it would just be interesting as well to experience what that might taste like off of, flour that's ground on a stone compared to flour that's ground, in other ways, and whether that makes a difference. Because one thing I do know about food and cooking is that the more heat, the more you cook the food. And if you're heating the food too much, you start to break down actually the nutrients and all the good stuff. So when you grind with a metal grinder, you try to grind corn with metal, it heats up really quick, and it heats up a lot. And even putting a small amount of corn, cracked corn, through my grain mill, when I stick my finger in the bowl after, it comes out warm, because that's how much heat is generated just from those two stones like coming together and mashing that corn. But on this particular tool itself, because it literally pulverizes it in seconds, you wouldn't have a heat buildup at all. So I'm curious about that in terms of like cooking and understanding a little bit more about that. So I'm game, Jess, if it seems like, there would be an opportunity that we could try something like that, I would be interested.
I will gladly, as I said, do maybe even a blindfolded taste test might be quite fun. I mean, that seems maybe more appropriate for TikTok rather than, a proper session. It would be a very fun video though, if we had one, using flour that was just ground with a mechanical grinder versus on the stone. But yes, I will eat all of the carbs that I need. I will consume them all. Whatever I need to eat is fine. And I think I could, as with Susan, putting her hand up, there are a lot more people here that would eagerly take part in that. Melissa says, yes, please. Okay. And more booklets. I like that suggestion. Yes, the more content we can put out, more videos of Janice and the stone, just more Janice, basically, I think is what we all need in our lives. Does anyone have any last minute questions or queries or comments? Feel free to unmute yourself if you wish. And Janice, do you have any? Oh, I see. There you go. Yes, hand up.
I'm just wondering if you do the bread baking, Janice, if you could make some of your wonderful cedar tea as well.
I would definitely, Jacinta.
Yeah?
Yes.
You want to tell folks how you make it?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing that. And especially with COVID happening, I encourage it. If you can drink cedar tea, it's very high in vitamin C, and it's just overall good for our bodies. I feel like tea in any form is a way for our body to easily access certain kinds of nutrients that aren't as readily available in foods and through heavier digestive processes. But yeah, so we use white cedar. And so the white cedar is like a flat cedar, and you can pick it pretty much any time of the year. Just look at it closely, make sure that what you're getting is you know, like looks like a good like leaf, or not sure what to call it on the cedar, but and sometimes I also encourage people, like if there's pieces already on the ground and they look fine, then use those. You don't have to pull it off the tree necessarily. But if you do, take a piece that's nice, and all you have to do is take that piece of white cedar and you boil it and you steep it in water, and that's all there is to it. And you can drink it plain, or you can add honey or maple syrup. And it has a really mild flavor. It can get stronger as you let it sit. But yeah, and like I said, it's high in vitamin C, so it's really good for our bodies. And when we would do different workshops, maybe this is why you're asking, Jacinta, is when I would be involved with Jacinta or different workshops or things, one of the things Ken and I always like to do is to bring a crock pot, and we put on some cedar tea for the people that are joining, just because I guess it's just part of our way, and it's just really welcoming, and it makes us feel good. Any?
We did have one more hand up now it's from M. Brant. I'm wondering, are you related to Mary Lynn?
I think many of us are related here at Tyendinaga, but I would just like to thank Janice for her presentation, and to thank her again for providing a focus, I think, for a cultural activity, you know, that really relates directly to something that we all need, and that's food. So again, Janice, thank you very much. Found it to be very informative, and we're very proud of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. I'm honored that you're on this call.
Just a nice group of people tonight, which I really like. I will say the majority of people that attend, first of all, anything that Janice is involved with, and second of all, museum events as a whole, are generally pretty incredible individuals. So thank you so much on our behalf, on the museum's behalf, for coming. Any final words, Janice? I think Sakoyeda had to leave us. So do you have anything that you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, I just see there one last question, just about how long to boil the cedar tea. And honestly, it doesn't really take very long. And how I usually, a lot for me, I look for the color. I look that the color is starting to go into the water. And then if it is, then you know you can start drinking it at any time, that it's steeped enough. Sometimes I like to have a couple of cups when it's nice and mild, and then I sometimes like to have some later when it's gotten a bit stronger. So it's just a lot about personal taste. And I even like it cold. So if there's some left over, I take it home, I put it in the fridge, and I drink it like iced tea. So yeah, it doesn't have to be too complicated. But thank you for asking me. Thank you for your good questions. Thank you for inspiring me. And yeah, I don't think I have a lot more to say other than just thank you. And I'm glad that we had this launch, and I'm grateful for all the people that could make it on. And yeah, I'm sad that I did see a message from Sagoyeta that they were having a power outage. They are having a storm up that way. And I know here, just before this started, we were getting some hail. So I wasn't sure what our weather was going to turn out like. But so I guess, yeah, so I'm kind of sad that we don't have Sagoyeta able to play us off as we sign off. But yeah, I'm just really grateful. I'm thankful to the county museums again for letting us do this hands-on experience and experimentation with the stone, because we learned, I think just can't even imagine. We wouldn't have learned all these things if we were just trying to examine it without touching it or without interacting with it the way that we did. And it's just, yeah, I just want to keep going. It's so inspiring. And like I said, I even keep thinking of other foods that I'd like to put on that stone grinder and see how it works. So I look forward to meeting you all again someday, and maybe we'll be having a little taste of some cornbread.
That's amazing. Yes, I see Melissa did ask right at the end, because now that COVID is winding down, will we be doing workshops in person? And I want to say, hopefully. That sounds, I am lucky enough to be able to see Janice a couple of times in the coming weeks in person, which I'm really looking forward to. But hopefully we can all welcome you in person back here to the museum soon, or to the library in Tyendinaga to work on the stones, or somewhere else entirely. We'll have to discuss, what comes next. And hopefully we can all hug as well. That would be great. Even I don't care that we're practically strangers. Some of us, I'll hug you. I'm ready. If you're ready to have me. But yes, thank you all so much for coming, and just thank you, Janice, for being a wonderful, wonderful human being, and sharing your passion and your knowledge with us. It never ceases to amaze me or make me just, be in awe of you, honestly. So thanks everyone for spending, I should say, your evening with us. And I'll stop the recording now and send you off on your way. But thank you and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.